is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback, Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's flat. He throws. It is.
Hello and welcome to the Past Our Prime podcast, a trio of hosts here. I'm one of them, Scott Johnston, joined weekly by Bill Mahoney and Mark Hoffman, halfway through the month of March and on the cover of SI 50 years ago, the enigmatic owner of the White Sox, one of the true characters in the history of the game, Bill Veeck. He was born in 1914, so just a little before Mark. He died 5 months before I graduated high school in 1986, inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1991. And coming on the show to talk about Mr. Veeck is Nancy Faust, who played the organ at White Sox games for 40 years and worked for Mr. Veeck in the mid-70s after he repurchased the team. That's right, he owned the Indians, the St. Louis Browns, and then the White Sox twice. So Nancy, a character in her own right, will join us to talk about working for Bill Veeck. Looking forward to that. And guys, this is our 115th show, and despite the fact that we are looking back at sports from 50 years ago, we haven't had that many people on the cover who are deceased. But if you could pick one athlete who is no longer with us to have on the show, who would it be for you? I'll go first. I always go first because I throw these things on you, and I want to give you a little bit of chance to think. And I'm not going to take Jackie Robinson or Muhammad Ali. Both would be obvious, great choices to talk with. But for me, I'm going to go with my favorite player and athlete as a kid, Kenny Stabler. Those Raider teams were so fun, so full of great stories, so many classic games. You know, in 1977, this coming next year, they win their first Super Bowl. And, you know, I'm thinking as a kid, well, this is great. My team is going to be great for forever. And that has obviously not been the case with my the silver and black. But, yeah, I would love to sit down, pop open a beer, and talk with the snake, Kenny Stabler. Mark, what about you?
And this might be a cop-out too, since you mentioned Muhammad Ali, but I would do George Foreman. Because when we had Georgette on the show and you talked about how George was sitting back at the ranch watching Westerns, man, I want to say, what was his favorite Westerns? What Westerns did he watch, you know? I want to know.
Well, what would be some that you would guess that he would have liked?
Oh, got to be the classics like Have Gun Will Travel, Gunsmoke. I was never a big Bonanza fan, but I would say Wanted Dead or Alive, with Steve McQueen. Those would be like up there for me for best Westerns.
Very good. Billy?
Just because we've learned a lot about him, I'm saying Bill Walton. When you talk to John Popinick, talking about the hike and the issues with Portland and just what Bill Walton became as he became an older man, I think he'd be great to talk with.
Yeah.
Right. And when we had Dr. Michael Levi on and he talked about how on Wooden's deathbed he let Walton play with Coach Wooden's like beard that he was growing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wooden would be also.
I was just going to say, you couldn't go wrong with Coach Wooden either. Yeah, absolutely. Hey, Mark, we had a Fran Tarkenton on the show back in November, and he didn't make us any money, but maybe you can.
Well, yeah, because, you know, one of our guests, he's advertising on Sports Illustrated. He's helping Bell Systems, the big phone company, you know. He says, if you think I scramble on the football field, you ought to see the 16-hour days I work running Behavioral Systems, Inc. We've grown from 4 years to 65 employees. See, we had Fran on the show, the businessman. You knew he was such a great businessman, but this was starting in his playing days. He was doing business. He was prepping for post-football and stuff. So, yeah, he's representing Bell there, our prior guest. Does that mean we get some, like, you know, of the money from these ads?
I believe so. Yeah. Yep.
That works.
I think
Oh,
I think if I remember correctly, I think I read where Fran Tarkenton made about $12 million in his 18 years in the NFL, and has made about $300 million in the business world since. So he knew a thing or two about the business, that's for sure.
that's a sharp dude. And by the way, I do have some very sad news to report to you today. And
Uh-oh.
both you guys, you're gonna have to brace yourselves, okay? It's with a very heavy heart that I say that after 223 days, my Wordle streak ended today. I'm so sad.
What does
Yeah.
that even mean?
You have to guess like the 5 letters, and I had the
Oh,
last 4. And instead of doing what I normally do, which is pick a word that has the possible missing letters that has nothing to do with the previous letter, I just started to guess the first letter and I didn't get it right. The word was gunky, and I went the junky and hunky first. So I'm
Man,
gonna have to start at the beginning
that's
again.
terrible news, Mark. You think we can have a moment of silence?
Yes.
well, if we have too much moment of silence, we'll hear the construction that's going on next door to Mark. So,
No, they're burying a dead body there. It's not.
okay. Well, Mark doesn't care about that.
Yo.
Scorecard, Al McGuire, Billy, he could have been in this every week.
Oh, I was going to go with the Dunnocks.
Scorecard, Billy, go with the Dunnocks.
Okay. I'll have to read this the way it's written. There's no intent here to denigrate Sports Illustrated readers who write to the 19th hole. But why don't we get letters like this one that appeared in the British outdoor magazine called The Field? Here it goes. This is from W. Burford Phillips. He's from Hertfordshire. He says, during the past 2 or 3 years, the Dunnocks in my garden have learned how to get the nuts that were put out for the tits. I have used old nets, old cages, and spiral springs, but they still succeed. Have other people's Dunnocks learned to do this? Also, has anyone found a mean of seeing the tits get their share? Now, I didn't know where to go with that. I don't know why tits are out, but they were.
Yeah.
So here's a translation for you all.
Okay.
The Dunnocks is a small brown garden bird. They have learned how to steal the nuts meant for tits or another type of small bird like the blue tits or great tits. The writer has tried nets, cages, and special feeders, but the Dunnocks still manage to get the food. Now the question is, have other people noticed this happening? And has anyone found a way to make sure the tits get, or those birds get their fair share? There you go. Now you know what a Dunnock is. And tits.
Wait, what's that last word again?
Tits?
Yeah. How do you spell
Yeah, those
that?
are birds.
How do you spell
They're
that?
blue or green.
Do you spell it the way I think you spell it?
Yes.
Yeah, it's they're the tits. They're birds,
Yes.
Mark.
You can't say that on a podcast.
They're birds.
Oh, sure. Right.
Look
at
it
that.
up.
Look
Wink,
at those
wink.
tits.
Exactly.
You
I
know?
cannot wait to do that at the game tomorrow. Wow, look at the tits on that one. And they'll go, what? And I'll go, yeah, bird up there in the tree. But I just read the story the way it's read, and then I found out about this that they were birds, Dunnocks and tits.
Yep. Mark, everyone plays.
Yep. I'm sorry. I was thrown back by that last story. My story is about Houghton Academy. It's a very small private high school in Western New York State. It has a student body of 65 students, and out of those 65, only 38 are boys. So they had a basketball game, okay? I don't know how many tried out, but they beat Faith Christian Academy 47-30. In that game, Houghton used 21 players. Every man or boy on the varsity and junior varsity team played. And more than that, all 21 of them, so they had 21 people on their squads between the two, varsity and JV, they all scored. Now you can imagine what the high score was because it was a tie. They had several players who led the team and was scoring with 4 points. That's very balanced scoring, and I just, he the coach just said, it's like, these are kids that'll never get a chance at most schools to play, and they emphasize participation. So it was just great to get everybody involved. And you can't say, oh, it's another case of participation and everyone has to get a medal, because they did win the game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which says a lot about Faith Christian Academy.
And you can't overlook, the 13 guys who each scored 4 points. We got to stop Ricky. If he gets to 5, we're done.
Oh, that'd be great. What could a basketball team do? Like the worst case scenario is if you have 13 guys all score like 9 points in a game or something like that. Or
Yeah.
you can play 15 guys. So I guess that'd still be like 135 points.
Yeah. Yep. I'm going to talk about Bobby Orr because his future is in doubt, especially about playing in Boston. He's been sidelined since November with serious knee trouble. May not play again this season or ever again for the Boston Bruins because of contract negotiations. His agent, Alan Eagleson, who Billy, I think ended up being a crook,
Jail.
has pushed for a massive long-term deal, at one point proposing a $10 million lifetime package. Disputes over free agent compensation rules contested by the NHL president, Clarence Campbell, have made it difficult to trade him. So, yeah, he's just kind of in limbo. The question is, did he ever play for Boston again? And the answer is yes, he did, but only briefly. After the contract standoff and ongoing knee problems, he returned, played the 76-77 season with Boston, managed just 10 games in the 77-78 season before being sidelined. In 78, he signed with the Chicago Blackhawks, played only 26 games for Chicago across 2 seasons before retiring in 1979. And Billy, I'll never forget a conversation I had with you. Gosh, this has to be 10 or 15 years ago. And I'm not a hockey guy. And I said something to the effect of, well, Wayne Gretzky is, clearly, the greatest player to ever play hockey. And you said, not confrontationally or anything like that, you said, yeah, a lot of people would say it's Bobby Orr. And I was like, are you kidding me? What are you talking about? And then I went back and looked him up. And here's a guy that was consistently over 100 points a season as a defenseman.
Yeah. But he also played great in his zone too.
Yeah.
He wasn't Paul Coffey.
No, he was a two-way stud.
Yeah.
So,
and he could throw down with guys too.
He had basically no weakness to his game.
No, none.
Back when quotes were bold, they said it.
Hey, they said it. Mark, another former guest of ours.
That's right. It's the theme on our show. Our former guest, Bill Lee, Boston Red Sox pitcher, the crazy guy. He says, I'm mad at Hank Aaron for deciding to play one more season because he threw his last home run ball to Hank, and he thought I'd be remembered forever for being the last pitcher to give up a home run to Hank Aaron. And he says, now I'll have to throw him another one.
Wonder if he did.
So do you guys remember who did throw Hank's last one?
No, who did?
We've talked about this. It was Dick Drago.
That's right, former Angel. Yeah.
Of the Angels.
Was he with Kansas City or was he with the Angels at the time?
He was with the Angels.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're always bad.
Dave Williams, who played for the Southern California Sun and the now defunct World Football League, appearing at a press conference, said, "This is the largest crowd I've performed before in 2 years." So,
what were there, 12 people at the presser?
Yeah, exactly. It was like going to Oakland A's press when we talked to Kotze down here. There's 5 of us.
Or going to an Oakland A's game.
Well, there's 10 of us then. Billy?
Valentin Petrovsky, the Soviet track coach, basking in the 85-degree weather in Los Angeles during a Russian tour of the indoor track circuit, says Napoleon should have invaded California.
Then all those French officers would have been like in shorts and,
I know. They
would have been borrowing Bill Veeck's Chicago White Sox uniforms and like invade California.
All right, let's get to the stuff inside the magazine, the actual articles. Virginia crashes the party. The ACC tournament shakeup in Landover. Its first year outside North Carolina. The ACC tourney is at the Capitol Center. It lacked its traditional Tobacco Road mania, but delivered chaos with Virginia coming from out of nowhere, kind of. Billy, they really turned things around come tournament time.
Yeah, they beat North Carolina State, Maryland, and North Carolina. They were 0-6 against those teams during the regular season. And actually, for them, making the tournament was the first time Virginia had made the tournament in 70 years. So it was actually just what an amazing 1976 season for these guys.
Absolutely. And Mark, it's probably all because of one guy. Terry Holland, their coach, was starting a good thing at UVA.
He sure was. He turned. They began all of a sudden after that drought of not making the tournament, being in the tournament all the time. Now they would lose to DePaul this year in the NCAA tournament, but a few years later, a big tall guy by the name of Ralph Sampson came to Virginia, and they were like one of the top teams in the country. Though again, even with Sampson, they couldn't win a national championship. It took a long time before they were able to do that.
Billy, how did they do with Ralph Sampson?
Well, I believe they made the tournament every year and they actually got to the semifinals. And they also, but the biggest thing I remember that, mind you, it's not a big thing, when they lost to Appalachian State. I think that was one of the ones. Or no, it was the Hawaii tournament. They lost a huge game when they had Sampson.
Oh,
Chaminade.
you're right. You're right.
Chaminade, yeah.
Chaminade.
Yeah, that was
Sampson.
what I don't know why. I don't remember a whole lot about what they did in there with Ralph Sampson. I know they made tournaments every year. I just remember the Chaminade game.
Oh my gosh, yeah, they never lived that one down. And that tournament, I think that was the greatest thing that ever happened for that tournament.
Yeah, and then you think of the kids on that team that beat Ralph Sampson in Virginia. To this day, they talk about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Despite a 24-2 record under Dean Smith, North Carolina's famed four corners backfired, basically came from 6 points down with a couple minutes to go. And then once they tied it, they went into the final, the four corners, and Virginia capitalized in the final seconds to claim the ACC championship and the NCAA berth. So here comes Virginia. Horse racing, 6,996, 6,997, 6,998. Yes, we're talking this week at Santa Anita. Jockey Billy Shoemaker almost surely will win his 7,000th race. Born prematurely in Texas and once weighing just 2.5 pounds, Shoemaker rose from an obscure apprentice to a racing icon, surpassing even Eddie Gaedel in major stakes wins and building a career of durability, humility, and historic success. A record 68,000 fans packed Santa Anita Park, hoping to see Shoemaker reach his seventh, though he fell a couple short that weekend. He would get it a few days later. Imagine that, almost 70,000 people in Arcadia to see horse racing. I looked it up. They averaged just under 7,000 people a day, which is actually, I thought, more than I would have thought. But Billy, much like you, the shoe, he never stopped talking.
Nope, Johnny Sellers once recalled riding in a race when Shoemaker pulled up beside him. He goes, halfway through the race, I noticed Shoe next to me, and I was lying about eighth. The leaders were a long way off. Shoemaker walks up or is right next to him and says, I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. I'm supposed to be in front. So the owner is supposed to be pulling their hair out. And then Shoemaker took off. He looped the field and won by 6 lengths.
Wow.
We could talk and ride.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mark, 10 years later, 1986, he was still winning races.
He was. So, I mean, his last, big race he won was in 75 at Belmont. So, he'd gone through an 11-year drought. But in 1986, at the age of 54, he wins the Kentucky Derby against Ferdinand, which I think was like an 18-1 long shot. And he became, at 54, the oldest jockey to ever win the Kentucky Derby.
Wow. Hall of Fame rider. Ended up being a quadriplegic, right? So that's how a lot of people, a little bit younger than us, remember Billy Shoemaker. But man, just an incredible jockey. Would finish his career with 8,833 wins.
And they're just talking about 7,000 in this one.
Right.
Yeah, well, dang, man.
Yeah, what was really sad though was in '91 he had that drunk driving car crash, and that's what left him paralyzed from the neck down, and he had to use the wheelchair, and probably was why he died 12 years later. I bet you he would have lived, a lot longer than 72 had it not been for that, car accident.
Yeah. adding a title to a triumph. Bill, coming off the Winter Olympics where she won 2 gold medals, Rosie Mittermeier proves that she's the real deal in Colorado.
Yeah, she's at Copper Mountain. That's where she wins the overall and slalom titles. And then the thing is, right after she won that race, the resort named the race course after her, the Rosie Mittermeier course.
Wow. She was quite a character, Mark. She, despite the worldwide fame, constant media attention, and near mob treatment following Innsbruck, she handles the spotlight and the pressure, wins both the overall and the slalom championships, and then basically says, I'm good. Thanks, guys.
Yep, May 31st, 1976, at the age of just 25, she says, I'm done. And she stopped. And I guess, skiing is a pretty demanding sport. I would think, like even like tennis, you achieve most of your success before you get into your late 20s, because it's such a demanding sport. I can't think of anything else. I mean, in football, running back, usually once they get into their late 20s, early 30s, they're not the same. If you're a quarterback, you can play your 90, so I guess it doesn't matter as long as you have an offensive line and an arm. But yeah, I mean, she just said, I'm going out on top, and she did.
Let's talk another skier, someone we had on the show about a month ago, Franz Klammer, also coming off gold at Innsbruck in his famous run that he had there. Billy, after he won there, the world had seen Franz and he was welcomed home, but it turned out he didn't need his passport for a while.
Yeah, thankfully, because on his passport, he lists his occupation as a farm worker. And he said his father already had the pitchfork waiting for him when he came back from the Olympics because they had to spread the dung for the spring planting. Darn, I wish we would have been able to ask him those questions.
Yeah, he's only 22 years old at the time of this article, which is like so weird to think of.
Yeah.
And they compare him to a young Paul Newman.
Mark, he's fearless when he goes down those mountains, and if you watch his gold medal run, it looks like he has no fear, and as it turns out, he really didn't.
No, and like he said when he was on the podcast, it's like everything slows down even at that speed. I just want to know if he's going to still try to take over the Nakatani building in Die Hard or not.
I think in Die Hard 3 he does.
Hook, line, and sinker.
No, it wasn't Franz Klammer. It was Hans Gruber. I'm sorry.
That's right. That's what I did that with Scott too when we first got him. It'd be Hans and Franz.
That's right. We're here to pump you up.
Really running in the red. The Louisiana Superdome faces financial pressure to approach breaking even. The Dome needs to host events 200 days a year, and currently they got about 140. So with tenants like the New Orleans Saints and the New Orleans Jazz covering only part of the schedule, they have trade shows and concerts and spectacles to fill the gap, but it's not going as well as they would have hoped. And Billy, the Superdome's open for business, but my goodness, it was a train wreck.
Yeah, I'll try to get this quickly. The ticket windows were backed up with long lines. Getting to your seat, especially in the upper levels, was nearly impossible. The building had 80 bathrooms, but finding your way back to your seat afterwards could be an adventure. Scoreboards frequently malfunctioned, and between 4,000 and 8,000 fans couldn't see the TV screen, and that includes the 64 luxury suites at cost from $35,000 a year. They couldn't see the scoreboards either.
And didn't you
Let's go to the Superdome?
Didn't you say they had to put something in about people spitting on people below them?
Oh, they did. They did. Yes. In the rowdy terrace seats, fans became so unruly that they really put in a spit barrier to protect the spectators below from getting spit on.
Oh.
But there was one bit of good news. Beer for 40 ounces was $2.25.
All right, we're going to the Dome.
A lot of drunk
I'm going
people.
To spit on people.
It's like going to a Raider game. Lots of drunk people.
Yeah.
And because they had such a problem building it, that one Super Bowl between the Dolphins and Vikings, they had to play a 2-lane stadium because it wasn't ready in time for the Super Bowl.
Yeah. Praised as futuristic and immense, the Dome's multi-use design means no single sport gets a perfect setup, but they're really saying this is the future of big-time sports events, and in that regard, they were not wrong. They have had 8 Super Bowls, 6 NCAA men's Final Fours. They play the Sugar Bowl every the year. They've had multiple national championship games and college football playoff games. I didn't remember this, but Leon Spinks beat Muhammad Ali to win the championship at the Superdome.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah,
I didn't know that.
lots of big things at the Superdome. And 50 years later, I don't hear any talk about like getting rid of it. I'm sure they do renovations on it all the time. So
It must be hard, though. I think Bill had mentioned before we taped something about going to certain sporting events there, like a basketball game, where like you'd be like so far away from the court, it's hard to see what's going on.
They said basketball games were even worse watching a game there. It said the court sat in one corner of the enormous floor, making the view from the upper decks look like watching 10 men play cards at a small table at the far end of a 747 hangar.
yeah.
Yeah,
That sounds fun.
Once more, California is in the van, Billy. That's a really kind of strange headline.
Yeah, it's about recustomizing vans, which was a big deal when I was a kid in those years. But it just reminded me of a song from many years ago from Sammy Johns. Let's see if you guys remember this.
All right.
She's gonna love me in my Chevy van, and that's all right with me.
Oh yeah,
We made
yeah, I
love in
remember.
my Chevy van, and that's all right with me. That was in 1973, and in those years, in that 72 to 1980, I knew a bunch of people that were redoing vans and making them, all fun inside.
So
No.
I'm gonna make love to her in my Chevy van or something. I remember that song. That's one of those songs
It
that
starts with "She's gonna love me in my Chevy van, and that's all right with me." And at the end of the song, it says, "Made love in my Chevy van, and that's all right with me." Because in those years, that's what vans were. If you guys remember, was it what was it? Bad News Bears.
yeah.
Right.
They went to Houston in one of those rebuilt vans.
Right.
Oh
Right.
my! Well, those are one of those songs you completely forget about, and then
Yep.
someone brings it up, and all of a sudden it's in your head. You
Yeah,
can't
it's a
get rid
good
of it.
song. I thought, man, that's the van song, and I found it.
Well,
And I
you
think
know,
Bill,
if
you
this
know,
van's a rockin',
and you know what? If there's an Olympics for people who can't sing, Bill and I are competing for gold because we are going. And I promise you, Bill, I will be a worse singer than you because I want the gold.
Where are we going?
Bad singing, like, and
Well,
that's
yeah,
all
but
right
I can
with
do that
me.
easily.
You didn't get kicked out of choir in 20 minutes, did you?
No,
I
I
did.
no, I got kicked out of a band in half hour.
Okay. Well, I got kicked out of choir in less than 20 minutes, so I am the
Man,
worst singer.
yeah. Well, I was at one time banned when I went to a friend's house for Thanksgiving back in the '80s. They banned me from playing Pictionary.
Why?
They said I was the worst drawer in the world and I couldn't play anymore.
I'd give you a run for your money, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Say cheese, mom and pop. Recruiting as a personal art. Joe Paterno has it down to a science. He's meticulous. He visits homes. He meets the families. He wins over not just the athletes, but their entire communities. He's charming. He's humble. He has attention to detail, and he makes some parents just so ready to hand their kids off to Papa Joe, Billy.
He was just a great schmoozer, like you said. He just knew how to talk to each member of the family and make them feel good about everything, and then that would get their son to go to his team. He just was great with it, and he always showed up. He was always dressed meticulously. Just a great recruiter, and obviously it proved with the success he had at Penn State.
Beyond X's and O's, Paterno inspires deep loyalty through relationships, storytelling, and shared rituals. He's just come off the season, I think, or maybe 2 years earlier, where he has Capoletti wins the Heisman. They're an independent school. They're not in a conference at the time. So he had many teams that were going 11-0, and they'd finish fifth in the polling, but turned that program into an absolute powerhouse. College hoops, the toast of the coast. Mark, UCLA, and for once, they don't win at all.
Yep. UCLA this is before the NCAA sanctioned women's basketball. And UCLA was a powerhouse, but apparently not powerful enough, Bill, because they lost to someone that is very dear to your heart.
Yes, The Cal State Fullerton women's basketball team. Back in the day, they were dominant because they had a coach named Billy Moore who went 140 and 14 from 69 to 77. They were also national champions in 1969, 70, and they would beat UCLA at times. But UCLA got smart and then hired Billy Moore away from Fullerton. And she ended up getting UCLA to win the AIAW national championship. She also led them to 7 additional national tournaments. Yeah, UCLA team nowadays is a regular in the NCAA tournament. Fullerton hasn't made it since 1989-90, and I blame it on UCLA taking Billy Moore from Fullerton.
Well, if you can't beat them, still their coach.
Yeah. Smart move. All right, let's move on. Let's talk a little college hoops on the men's side. And Mark, this is just a disastrous year now that John Wooden is gone. I mean, everything's gone to hell at Pauley Pavilion.
That's right. They can't do anything right. They did beat USC 87-83. Oh, and I guess they won their 10th straight Pac-8 crown, but they suck.
Indiana, led by stars Scott May and Kent Benson, wrapped up their second straight undefeated regular season at 27-0. And how about this? Rutgers is going to enter the NCAA tournament as one of only 2 unbeaten teams. They're 28-0. They would advance to the program's only Final Four appearance. So they won a few games in the tournament. So they were a good team. And the thing I thought that was so crazy is they go 28-0 in the regular season. Their football team that year was 11-0. So Rutgers, man, 1976 is the apex for that New Jersey school.
Right on, Rutgers.
Yeah. Hey, how about this blast from the past? A rising young son, Alvin Adams, nicknamed the Oklahoma Kid, or Double A, emerged as the finest player in University of Oklahoma history, earning Big 8 Player of the Year and Big 8 Tournament MVP honors in each of his 3 seasons, freshman, sophomore, and junior, while maintaining a stellar 3.8 GPA in pre-med studies and achieving Eagle Scout status. Now, he said he was going to forego playing professionally because he wanted to be a doctor, but then his Oklahoma coach, John McLeod, goes to Phoenix. And Mark, where does Alvin go?
Alvin goes to Phoenix because you follow your coaches to where they go. And Alvin Adams, I mean, that just sounds like a guy who should have played basketball at Oklahoma. And then he had a good NBA career, he was never a superstar, but he was a real steady player. And he was the fourth overall pick in the 1975 draft. So everyone thought a lot of Alvin Adams.
Yeah, and Billy, that rookie season was a good one for him.
It was. He was NBA Rookie of the Year in 1975-76. But after that, he would never win another major award during his next 12 seasons.
Yeah, I always remembered him as being a good role player. And I don't mean like an 8 points a game. I'm talking double figures. I think he averaged 14 points a game for his career. He just was never like the focal point of those Suns teams, but he'd go for 20, 25 every once in a while. You could never leave him alone. He was definitely a force, but I think this Suns team is going to shock the world when they get to the NBA Finals, and he's a big reason why here in 1976. Back Where I Belong. This is actually written by the guy on the cover of SI, Bill Veeck, with some other guy named Ed Lynn. And in December of 1975, Bill Veeck fights his way back to buy the Chicago White Sox. I never realized that Bill Veeck at one point owned the White Sox, then didn't, and then did again. And many of the American League owners did not want him back in baseball. One of his biggest opposition was Angels owner Gene Autry. They really thought that he didn't have the funds. There was talk about moving the White Sox team out of Chicago, and he was not really welcomed back. I think his pioneering and maverick ways probably turned a lot of other owners off.
Yeah, he sure was. He sure was smart, though. Just a couple of things. I was looking back at some of the things he did. He obviously had the promotions. We all know the Disco Demolition Night, but he also came up with names on the back of jerseys. He also had the ivy planted on the Wrigley Field walls in 1937. And then we all watched the Cleveland Indians, who lost to the Cubs back in 2016. The last World Series that the Indians won in 1948, Bill Veeck was the owner.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah.
That's right.
And wait, what year
Yeah.
did he put Ivy in Wrigley?
1937.
Yep.
Wow.
And one other sort of interesting thing, they hired Larry Doby, the second black manager in Major League Baseball history. But after Doby was fired, Veeck hired Tony La Russa.
Ah.
And even more than that, when he owned the Indians, the first team he owned was the Indians. They signed Larry Doby, so he was the first black player in the American League. Jackie Robinson was the first in the National League and first in baseball, but Larry Doby was first in the American League. And after he sold the Indians, he then owned the St. Louis Browns, and that's when they had the midget Eddie Gaedel play in that one game against the Tigers.
Yeah.
That's right.
He did a lot. Oh, and Satchel Paige. I think signed Satchel Paige for the Cleveland Indians when he owned the Indians too.
Yeah, when he was like in his 50s.
Yep. Still the oldest player to pitch, right?
I believe so.
Yep.
And I think Minnie Minoso was on
That's
those.
right. He did that every year. Minnie Minoso would come back, for like a game.
One other thing, Chicago fans, White Sox fans, they loved Bill Veeck. They rallied behind him as the man who saved the team. They had airport crowds and a brass band greeting his return, transforming a boardroom fight into a civic triumph. Next up, we're thrilled to welcome a true Chicago baseball icon, Nancy Faust, the legendary White Sox organist who set the soundtrack at Comiskey Park for 41 seasons. From 1970 to 2010, she revolutionized the ballpark experience, pioneering walk-up music, turning Na Na Hey Hey Kiss 'Em Goodbye into a fan anthem, and even earning shout-outs as the, quote, most valuable organist, end quote, in the press. And she did it all starting from that iconic center field organ booth to fire up the fans. Nancy has some firsthand knowledge of that baseball maverick, Mr. Bill Veeck, as she worked for him for a handful of years. Nancy, welcome to Past Our Prime.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's fun to share some of these great memories. I'm happy to be here. Thank you, Scott.
So tell me.
Thank you, Mark and Bill.
Tell me a little bit about how you became the White Sox organist, and what was your reaction when Stu Holcomb hired you on the spot after just a chance meeting, I think it was, at a banquet?
That's exactly right. I had no aspirations growing up and being involved with any kind of Chicago sports, because my family was not really sport oriented at all. They worked hard. We didn't go to games or anything like that. But my mother was a musician, and she was pretty active in Chicago. She couldn't make a luncheon or a banquet that I filled in for her, and Stu Holcomb happened to attend. And it was there that I met him, and he liked what he heard. And once I realized just what was involved with playing at a ball game, I knew it was something I could do. Because primarily when I started, it was just play the anthem and play for about an hour as fans walked into the stadium. And I just could play anything that was popular and songs of my choice. And then there was Take Me Out to the Ball Game and a couple of charges, which I wasn't always certain about when to insert those because I wasn't familiar with the game. But that's when I got my start, was 1970. And it was Mr. Veeck, actually, who hired the very first organist at Comiskey back in 1960, and that was Shea Torrent. And thanks to Bill, he placed the organ, did something very unconventional. He placed the organ out with the fans. At that time, it was in center field. So that was unusual, and it was good for me, actually, in the long run. But so when I started, I was out center field bleachers, the same place that Bill had hired the first organist when Bill owned the team the first time. So it was a good time to break in because the fans were hardly any fans there. It wasn't, if I screwed up, nobody'd know the difference. And if we actually do a crowd one time, I remember we do a crowd of about 8,000, and Stu was just sulking because here we had a decent crowd, 8,000, and we lost the game. So that's how bad my first year was attendance-wise. And so it was a good place to break in. And it was Bill that was responsible, like I said, for hiring the first organist. And I followed Shay, who then moved to California and played for the Angels for many, many years.
I've read quite a bit about Bill in the last couple of weeks, and there's a couple of things that stand out. His being a baseball maverick, his promotions. He just thought he was like the original think outside the box. But I've also read that he was a really, really nice man. Tell me a little bit about your relationship with Bill and what he was like.
Well, actually, I had never met Bill when I showed up to play the first game, and I believe that was 1976. All I know is that I get to the park and I couldn't find the organ. Well, it was explained to me that Bill realized there was an organ occupying 10 prime box seats, because that's my third year at the park, which I should back up a little bit. Harry was insisting that they bring the organist back to where the fans could interact a little bit, which is what the Sox did in 1972. So they brought me in behind home plate, removed 10 box seats, which were fabulous, right behind home plate. I was surrounded by fans. And so over the years, I developed a bit of a following, and there was a lot of interacting going on. Well, when Bill came along in 1976, he just noticed that this organ was occupying valuable seats. So he put it in a very obscure place, way up in a corner. And that's, so I really wasn't really happy about the situation. And I wasn't happy about this Bill Veeck guy either. I never really expressed any dismay to him. However, the fans that surrounded me right away wrote up a petition and presented it to him, evidently. And so he was so moved by that he moved me back down. So when I came back for the second homestand, the organ was back down in the upper deck in a wonderful spot again, occupying good seats, but made happy fans and a happy organist. And so I think as time went on, Bill realized that I proved some value because he did have all those wacky promotions. And since I was the only source of music in those days, I was able to play music that was well suited for whatever the promotion was. And I think he appreciated that and he liked it. And in fact, I must say he even gave me a bonus, which was unheard of, I think, in those days. Uh-huh. So he came to appreciate me, and I certainly did him. And I appreciated that he respected the fans' wishes by moving me back to my perch.
So you're saying that Bill Veeck, he had all these ideas and you could come up with your music. Does that mean, and I probably am way off here, that he talked to you about some of these ideas prior to incorporating them so you could get the music right?
Well, I was aware of what the promotion was several days in advance. I don't read music, but I was able to, I knew so many, my repertoire was vast because of my mother being in the business. So whatever the promotion was, whether it was a circus day or a country day or a German day or Italian, I had music that was suitable. Polka and from, Polish day, I just had all the music for the background that was fit the occasion. And I know he didn't talk to me at all about it. It must have been the promotions department. And they really just told me what the promotion was. And I just did what I thought was appropriate without any interference from management. And yeah, I was like the soundtrack because, like I say, there was no canned music in those days. And I was just reflecting everything. Eventually I'd reflect whatever I saw happening in the park. And it was just another aspect of entertainment, another dimension of entertainment for some people. And I think Bill appreciated that because that was what it was all about. He wanted the fans to have a good time, win or lose.
Well, honestly, just listening to you talk, you have to be a genius. How big was your mental jukebox? Did you have hundreds of songs in your head, thousands? That is impressive to say, they play polka, I'll just do it. Where did that come from? It's amazing.
I guess I have a gift of, I'm a one-trick pony, and the one thing I could do all my life, I had perfect pitch. So if I knew a melody, so when I was moved back, I'm going to back up a little more again. When I was moved back, so that I could see the scoreboard, like any mention on the scoreboard, say of a sponsor, like welcome to the Coca-Cola people tonight, or the Budweiser folks, or the Keebler 7-Eleven. I knew their jingle, so I could automatically play off the scoreboard. And I think he liked that because that kept his sponsors and those people on the scoreboard happy. But yes, I mean, if I know the melody, I can just sit down and play it. It would be like you typing a word that you'd never typed before, but you know how to spell it, so you just type it. And I guess that's the only way I can describe what I do. And it was a wonderful fit, even though I didn't know much about sports. But by the time I was moved behind home plate and I had this cast of hundreds of people interacting with me and enlightening me and giving me wonderful ideas for songs, for players, and telling me a little bit about their background, I was just in the right place at the right time.
You know, Nancy, I was born on the south side of Chicago, and my first memories always was going to old Comiskey Park, you know, watching ball games, sitting in those little tables where you could eat underneath the bleachers, watching players run all along the warning tracks. And it was such a great memory. But I actually moved to California in the late 60s, so I just missed you. But my relatives went to White Sox games and listened to you all the time. But so my question for you is, they say you're kind of credited with creating the walk-up music. So how would, in today's age, I think the player says, hey, when I come up to the plate, play this music. They kind of decide what music is played. But you were picking the music for the players at that time, correct? And how did you come up with what song for what player?
Well, I mean, at the time, if I heard a name like Bill, say Bill Melton. Well, there were songs like He's Just My Bill at that time. That was 40 years ago, an old song. Or Won't You Come Home, Bill Bailey. Won't You Marry Me, Bill. So, maybe the number on his back would have an association. I guess it was Harry that actually encouraged me, because when I was in center field bleachers, my second year, and I had a radio at the organ so I could try to understand the game, and I'd listen to Harry broadcast, and I'd try to pick up tips about terms in the ball game. And I remember, I've told this story before, but I think the first time that he ever recognized what he did, and it really inspired me to even get crazier, was when he said, oh, listen, he said, this team is so boring, they're going to have to carry me out of this park, he said. And so with that, I played Carry Me Back to Old Virginia when I heard him say that. Well, he heard that, and he broadcast that, and he said, well, listen to that organist. Even the organist is, picking up on this. And so that encouraged me to keep playing things that reflected anything that happened or anything I heard said on a broadcast. So that's how, and then I guess when I did play Jesus Christ Superstar for Dick Allen, and Sports Illustrated made a deal out of it that here, this player even has his own song. Well, that encouraged me to make sure I had songs for all the players that I could. And so it wasn't called walk music, but I was doing it. And it was, I think, a form of entertainment for a certain segment of the fans. They'd try to figure out why I was playing this song or that song, or I could have found out about some background about a player. I know I've used this example of Jose Canseco. I was told that he had dated Madonna, so I was able to play Material Girl. Actually, I'm sitting at the organ. I suppose I could do something for you.
Oh, yeah.
But anyhow, so I picked up cues from the fans that George Brett had hemorrhoid surgery, or that somebody was in a store and he got locked in there at the watch section, and he got accused of doing something nasty. And so I might have played, does anybody know what time it is? I don't think the ball players were actually listening to me. I was there for the entertainment of the fans. And so it wasn't just walk-up music. I didn't play only for players. I just reflected everything going on, including the players. But then there came a time, once we got recorded music was accessible, and our management realized, I remember they said, well, the Cleveland Indians, they just won their division, and those players are able to select their own songs, so it must inspire them. So we're going to ask our players what song they want to hear. Well, that kind of ended my tenure of doing something like that. But I did reinvent myself, and I thought, well, if I'm not going to play for our own players, I'll do something for the visiting players, and I still do that. So I continued to do that. Just I find a song, something that's appropriate, just to keep the things moving at the park.
You became a celebrity. I mean, you appeared, as you said, on Good Morning America. Sports Illustrated wrote about you, calling you the MVO, the most valuable organist. What did it feel like to be kind of a celebrity, something I'm sure you had no idea that would happen?
Thank you. I really did realize that I was on top of my game. I realized I was doing something I never dreamed I'd be doing. I loved it. It was like attending a nightly party. I was surrounded by fans having a good time. Everybody's bonding and forgetting problems back home. I did realize I had the best thing going. I knew it was just wonderful. So my career was just wonderful.
I will say, Nancy, my favorite song growing up, being it to Bill, was "Won't You Marry Me, Bill." My sister used to sing it to me all the time. But when you mentioned it, I got a big smile on my face. I had to mute myself because I was starting to laugh. So I remembered it. But beyond that,
would you like me to play a few bars for you, Bill?
Hey, man, you think I'm turning that down? No way. I'll take that anytime. Yeah.
Did that come across?
That is awesome. I'm going to cut that and send that to my sister. She's just saying that. Thank you so much. I'm getting all weepy eyes. That's so cool.
We're living in a fifth dimension.
No, I was just going to say how I'm so much more comfortable playing than I am talking. So,
well, it doesn't show because what you're saying is resonating with all three of us.
Well, I want to tell you about one more promotion though before I let you speak, and that's the reason I'm here in this barn. Is that one of the promotions involved that Bill had was called Ragtime Night, and the fans always were winning prizes, so they stayed engaged with their tickets. And so one of the winning tickets was for a donkey that was paraded out to the field, and it was a live donkey. And the winner did not claim it, so they didn't have a place for it in their Chicago home. So the donkey's hanging out at the park the next day, and I saw it, and I asked Bill if I could have it because it wasn't claimed. And he said, well, we would otherwise give it back to like Great America or whoever donated it. I think it was the Adventureland actually that donated this donkey. Well, anyhow, he let me have the donkey, and that's what created my love and appreciation for the animal. And I've got another donkey, and here I am in Arizona with a place for donkeys. But it all started with Bill.
Man, such a simple thing, and now you're a true donkey lover. Is there something? I'll just play off it. Is there something we need to know about donkeys, just in case one of us decide to go into that? Bringing up a donkey.
Well, just that they're maligned, and they really aren't stubborn at all. They're very cautious. They're so smart that they do not put themselves in harm's way. And because of that, if they trust you, you can believe they'll be a good friend. And they'll do all kinds of things for you once you earn their trust. So I'd say they're a wonderful animal, and I would have never known had it not been for Bill.
No, that is wow! What an amazing story that you have a pet for the rest. I mean, in terms of other donkeys, but you have a donkey as a pet. That's a first on our show, I think. Anyone here know that any of us have a donkey for a pet in our show?
No.
But I just want to ask Nancy, what was it like when you're sitting in those bleachers and all the fans around? Were you nervous? Were you excited? I just to think you sitting out there in the bleachers to me would have been awesome. But what was going through your mind when you were out there?
I was just having a good time. I think the hardest part of the evening was just getting to the park because I lived maybe a good hour from the park. Once I got there, it's like, oh, now the fun begins. No, I was never rattled because music just came so easy, and somehow I was able to juggle talking with fans and playing at the same time. I don't know how. I guess it's like typing and talking or something. I don't know, but it was a good feeling, and just feel very fortunate that I've had the opportunities that I have had and made so many wonderful connections and so many fans whose lives I followed for literally generations. And I think I could write a book about the cross-section of fans that I've met and been so lucky to still stay in touch with.
Absolutely. No question. We're right in the heart of it with the legendary Nancy Faust, the White Sox organist who turned Comiskey Park into her own little symphony of fun for 41 years. She started under our cover man, Bill Veeck, the innovative spirit of the 70s, and she invented walk-up music, made Na Na Hey Hey Kissin' Goodbye an anthem, and synced perfectly with Harry Carey on the seventh inning stretch. Now, Nancy, that's where I want to go, because I grew up in the 80s when Harry Carey and WGN blew up, and all of a sudden this, larger than life character with the glasses was singing. How did you sync up with Harry, and what was it like? Those seventh innings back then were legendary.
Well, actually, I was fortunate to be placed where I could, through the corner of my eye, if I turned my head, see Harry in his booth. And so when I played Take Me Out to the Ball Game, he would often just stand up there waving his arms like a conductor, and and kind of singing along, and fans noticed that. But at some point, Bill Veeck did give him a microphone and said, "If you're going to do that, let's hear you." And Harry would say, "Well, I guess I was so bad I was good. If he'd been any better, he would have been bad." But it was something that all the fans could relate to, sing along to, and he really honed his skills at our park. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of that. I always gave him an introduction that made it easy for him to fall in line to the song itself. And it became a thing. I think if the team was losing and if anybody wanted to leave, they'd wait for that seventh inning stretch. So it was a great thing.
Another great thing, my dad just loved it, and he was a Sox fan. He was a Red Sox fan, but he still loved the Na Na Hey Hey song. Tell me about that tradition. Can you walk us through how and when that became a staple of yours?
It was just kind of by mistake when I played it, when all the ingredients were there that the fans just burst into song and accompanied me. But it was in August of, was it 77, I believe, at the end of July, when the Sox were vying for first place and with Kansas City Royals. And when I played it, I'd play it just if somebody strike out, like "Na Na Goodbye," no big deal, okay? But then when I happened to play it when the pitcher was removed from the game, and that's when all the fans sang along. And that was the cue that this is the time you do it, is when they take the pitcher out of the game. And it was such a resounding success. And afterwards, I remember walking through the boardroom, and a writer said, "What song was that?" Well, I never really knew the appropriate name. All I knew is that in the lyrics there was a goodbye. And I remember saying, "Oh, this is called Sha Na Na Goodbye." And so I think he wrote the next day, Nancy played Sha Na Goodbye, which I learned later it was Na Na Goodbye. But it became such a thing with us. And then when we returned to other parks, by that time, if there was the ability to use canned music, they'd taunt us with it. But it also prompted Mercury to re-release the record. And they presented me with a gold record before a ball game at the end of that season, because they revived the song in '77. It was originally popular in 1969 by a group called Steam. And I didn't play it then. I didn't play it until '77. That's when I started playing it and realizing, hey, this works. And I remember the Sox, Bill Veeck saying, "Well, can we get another song like that? Let's a couple of years later, let's do another one that can we associate something with our team." But it's just it's so magical that you can't dictate something like that. It just has to happen, and it did. So, yeah.
I loved that song. I remember as a kid, na 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 na. Na. I can't sing it. Hey hey hey. Good. I actually love that song.
Common. It kind of brought out a dark side, I think, to the fans, because prior to that, if a pitcher did well, we might applaud him, but it was this poor guy, he's taken out of the game, and we're taunting the guy. But things changed. I don't know.
Now you were around. Big Bill Veeck had some really interesting promotions, and you were around to witness these. I wanted to look at a couple of them. The first one to me is 1976, he decides the players should wear shorts for a few games. What did you think of that? And did you do anything musically to, when they wore it? I think it was 3 games when they put on those shorts.
I probably there was a song called "Who Wears Shorts?" Very popular, long time ago.
Yes,
but
yes.
I may have done that. But I think that promotion only lasted like a day, if I'm not mistaken, because their knees were vulnerable to scratches and things like that. But yeah, that really made the front page of I remember the Sun-Times, Chicago Sun-Times Sunday magazine, where they had me wearing some shorts and a Sox jersey, along with some other women that had prominent jobs in Chicago. So yeah, it made its mark. That was a crazy promotion. I know which other one you're going to say, because everybody remembers those that, go south, like Disco Demolition, I suppose.
Yes, we had Milt Wilcox on the show, who was scheduled to pitch for the Tigers in that second game, but he never got the chance. So what was going through your mind? Did you have to play in between games, or because of this promotion where they're going to blow up the records, you didn't have to play, you just could watch it?
Well, when it started, it was still orderly, and fans were yelling, Disco sucks, but it was orderly. So I'm doing this, going along, and everybody's happy. And I can tell you the story about the three nuns sitting in front of the organ that asked my friend, who was a season ticket holder, "What's everybody yelling? What's that saying?" And well, my friend didn't want to say those words, because in those days it wasn't nice to talk to, not to say disco sucks to a nun. So he said, "No, they're all yelling, let's go Sox." So these three, they were very animated and having a good time. But as the night went on and fans started to storm the field, everything changed. And I just remember Bill Veeck getting on the microphone, and I remember playing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," saying, "Let's all sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." Harry leading it. That didn't stop anything. There was nothing that could stop the commotion. And I think I realized it was getting serious when I looked across and saw a little fire starting in the bleachers across the field, over, and towards center field. And I thought, wow, this could mushroom into something bad. So I didn't realize it was that bad until toward the end. But I still have a script from that night, and it did say that Nancy is to play "Do You Think I'm Sexy?" and Steve Dahl will sing his own lyrics called "Do You Think I'm Disco?" Well, we never really did coordinate because it was just too chaotic. But when he went off the field, I remember playing like this.
Do you think that Disco Demolition night was sort of the end for Bill, and his wacky promotions?
Good question. I don't remember that. I don't remember that being the end of the promotion. And I think the fall guy was his son, Mike. So that might have hurt Mike. I'm sure it was very sobering for the family. But at the same time, it did solidify the fact that he was the Barnum and Bailey of ball games and promotions. I don't remember promotions abruptly ending after that. I think he just kept doing it, but it certainly cast a bad light on it for a while.
Nancy, you knew things were out of control when the three nuns stormed the field.
They didn't storm the field. They stayed in their seats, but they were animated.
Great.
Yeah.
Nancy, I was noticing that you're in the Hall of Fame, or at least there's now an exhibit, Women in Baseball in the Hall of Fame. How do you feel about that, knowing that there's an exhibit that you're part of in the Baseball Hall of Fame?
Oh, actually, when I was a fan that said they had attended, they'd gone to the Hall of Fame, and they said, your picture is there and an exhibit. So my husband and we made a point to get out there while it was still there. But I was just there again, and the exhibit exists. And yes, it's quite an honor to be included in that. And now there's another exhibit that they've included me in called something about how the game has changed over the decades. And one of the changes would be the music, adding walk-up music. So that's the second exhibit, and I'm very honored to be included in such a prestigious way.
Is that when you play the organ that you're playing behind us, what we can hear sometimes? Is that the organ you used at Chicago, or is that organ in the Hall of Fame?
This is the organ that I'll use. Well, actually, I'll be playing for a White Sox spring training game, and this is the organ that we'll use there. It's a little bit cut down from what I used to use, but it has the same number of keys, and it's pretty powerful. It packs a big punch. But another thing of interest is that here in Arizona, there's a brand new baseball museum in Mesa, and I think that people coming out here for spring training would enjoy visiting that, because it features teams that have spring training out here, and it's very Cub and White Sox, Chicago centric. And there will be an event there on March 12th that I'll be playing for. And that's when the documentary that's been made, the trailer of the new documentary about Dick Allen will be shown, and there will be a panel there talking about the documentary. And among those on the panel will be Fergie Jenkins, I understand, and as well as Dick Allen's wife and son. And the fellow that's doing the documentary, that would be Dr. Dave Fletcher, who also wrote a book about Dick Allen called Chili Dog MVP. So we're excited about attending that event too on March 12th.
That's wonderful. You know, it's so funny. Here we are working for 3 baseball teams, and I've never heard of this Hall of Fame museum until you tell me, Nancy. So you're obviously a good source of information.
Yeah.
Because, those teams.
Well, I'll tell you, they had a grand opening about a week ago. So
okay.
It is very new.
Never knew anything about them.
I could play a little, you'll be hearing Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yeah.
Because should I do that?
Please.
Here,
Yes.
Let's do.
Oh, that sounds.
Did that come across?
That's great.
Wow.
Sounds so great and has that retro feel to it. It just is wonderful. I can picture Dick Allen in the on deck circle. Tell me, did he ever respond to that?
Not when he was a player, but certainly later on in life. In fact, he was interviewed just shortly before his death when they think his number was retired in Philadelphia, and he was interviewed out there, and they asked him what they thought about about Jesus Christ Superstar. He said, that was music to my ears, and he just couldn't have been more gracious. And yes, and I was able to meet him along the way, long after he retired. And what a gentleman. And he's finally got his due, and so we're really thrilled about that.
A lot of memories over the years. In 2005, the White Sox win the World Series. What was that like for you to finally be playing music for a championship team?
Well, it was something that I guess fans waited 88 years to finally be victorious, and I was so happy to be part of it. And I think what impressed me the most was being able to play at the rally, the parade downtown after they won, and how orderly it was and how many attended. I'm sure there were many, many Cubs fans. It was like the whole city just united and backed the Chicago White Sox. It was just orderly, and the organ was up next to the podium, and it was just exciting to be part of it. And it was even received a World Series ring because I had been there so long. And so that was the cherry on top of everything, as well as so that was the
Fire questions fly, lightning strikes his answers try. Buzzers ring, chaos in the air, trivia time, truth.
We're going back to shorts, okay? True or false?
All right.
The White Sox were the first professional team to have their baseball players wear shorts.
Well, it sounds like a trick question, so I'll say no.
Yeah, you're correct. It's false. The Hollywood Stars in 1950 actually had a gimmick where they wore shorts, didn't last very long. And the Spokane Indians even tried it a year later in 1951.
How about that?
Yeah.
So you mean Bill wasn't that original after all?
No, they tried it before. But those were baggier. If you look at the Hollywood Stars ones, because back then baseball uniforms were real baggy and stuff. So the shorts were really baggy. They looked like they were 5 times the size of the person.
Okay, no, these were a little sexier. So. And I think it was actually, did I not? I think it was Mary Frances, his wife, that designed the whole outfit, if I remember correctly. Just as it was Jerry Reinsdorf's wife that designed the World Series ring. So those women, they had a role to play in baseball.
See what I mean? You're just a fountain of information.
I know. We got to bring you on with every show. You go, hey, I think I did that. But Nancy,
I think I've just heard everything I know. I think you've just heard it all, honestly.
I was just thinking about being a Southern California guy. I think, what was the organist at Dodger Stadium? I think it was Nancy Heffley. Am I right on that?
Helen Dell?
Nancy B. Heffley.
Helen Dell.
I was able. Oh, yes, so you're right. It was Nancy B. Heffley, and we made a trip out there, and I was able to meet her. Lovely gal. And
I was going to say, do you guys share secrets with the other organist around baseball all the time?
Really, not at all. Yeah, no. In fact, I really knew very few organists until I got involved on Twitter, and then I realized other organists have make their posts, and I'd read them. Yeah, and actually over the years, I had organists from other teams come and visit and take notes. Like I remember the Royals sent their organist, the Texas Rangers sent their organist out just to take notes of what they might do at a ball game, different trends, and before canned music was so available. But so what I did was pretty special, because if you have to refer to music, you just couldn't cut it. You had to be more spontaneous than that. And I think that was the bottom line. And it's nice to hear live music at a park again. About half of the parks are using some form of live music, which is nice. Like to hear that. It's that sound that it's just kind of, you associate with a ball game, I guess.
Yeah.
Sound of the organ. So.
And Nancy, that's where I was going to go, because now when you go to a ball game, whether it be basketball or NBA, which you were also a big part of, to me, it's almost sensory overload. They can't allow any silence. Whereas back in your day, I felt like when you were playing, there was a purpose to it, to get the fans up on their feet, or to just, to kind of wake people up. But now it's just like, oh my gosh, if you were still playing now, how would it be different than when you first started?
Well, actually, I did return last summer because it was the 125th anniversary. And after having been retired for about 15 years, they invited me back to play for Sunday games. And what's different is that, like you say, every 15 seconds is a segment that generates revenue.
Right.
So there is no time to just sit back and relax and maybe and talk to the person next to you. I mean, your attention is demanded all the time via commercials and games and sponsors. So it's a much faster moving game now. So I couldn't do things the way I used to do, because I was the sole source. And if there was something to play, if there was something to get across, that's when I did it. And I think there was, people could converse more at a game. Now you have to listen and watch, but can't really talk to the person next to you as easily if that's what you want to do. So it's a different feel, but I think people's attention spans are shorter and they're used to this now. So yeah, it is different.
It is, for sure. Hey, Nancy, before we say goodbye, speaking of goodbye, can we get you to play a little of the Na Na Hey Hey song for us?
I'd be delighted. Here you go. And thank you for having me on and listening to me today. I'm delighted to be part of the show.
Oh,
there you go.
That is great.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much, Nancy, for coming on, and the soul of Comiskey, everybody, Nancy Faust.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. It was my pleasure. My pleasure to share some great memories.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Rookie cards of baseball, basketball, and football stars are iconic pieces of American history, and they have been outstanding investments over the last 50 years. Now, key issues of Sports Illustrated, professionally graded and encapsulated by CGC, have emerged as an exciting alternative to trading cards. ThePit.com is the leading online exchange for investment-grade sports magazines. General Manager Mark Humphreys offers Sports Illustrated first cover editions featuring stars like Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes, Derek Jeter, Ken Griffey Jr., and so many more. And the CEO of thepit.com, Mark Humphreys, is here. Mark, March 15th, 1976, had the owner of the White Sox, Bill Veeck, on the cover. He was a strange fella. Can't think this one is a huge collectible.
No, this is about the least collectible magazine of Sports Illustrated that we've talked about so far. I was not at all surprised when I learned that 0 had been graded. No one has been willing to spend $30 to get their Bill Veeck Sports Illustrated encapsulated and graded. But I mean, he was a very interesting guy. Just reviewing his history, he was involved with a number of different teams. I always remember him as the guy who, I wasn't there at the time, but he sent a midget up to the plate, Eddie Gaedel, when he was owner and manager and promoter of the St. Louis Browns. And he had to scramble with what we would today call small market teams. And he was an incredibly innovative owner and promoter. Disco Demolition Day, interesting uniform changes were some of his hallmarks, but there are many more. He wrote an autobiography, which I have not read, but you could write a book about this guy. The bottom line is, though, that there's not too much, there's almost no market for any owners of teams. And Bill Veeck, despite his very colorful history, is no exception.
Only thepit.com offers competitive buy now and sell now quotes on graded magazines online, as well as many of the most popular modern PSA graded rookie cards, including Shohei Ohtani, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Nikola Jokic, and Steph Curry. Trade sports stars like stocks at thepit.com.
Whistles blow, legends grow. For the record, wow. Whistles blow, legends grow. For the record,
Oh yeah, also known as Slapsy Maxie. Max Rosenblum, he was a professional boxer, actor, and television personality. He won the New York Sack and Ring Magazine light heavyweight titles in 1930, defeating Jimmy Slattery. That was a great fight. Mark was there. But he was also nicknamed Slappy Mac or Slapsy Maxie because he was a character actor. And he appeared in shows like I Dream of Jeannie, The Munsters, and Abbott and Costello Productions.
Wow. Who knew?
I thought Mark would know this guy like the back of his hand.
I have to look at his face. Did he specialize in slapstick comedy?
I believe so.
Let's talk a little baseball, Mark.
Yeah, let's talk about Harmon Killebrew. He announces his retirement after 22 seasons in the American League. He started off with the Washington Senators and the Minnesota Twins, and he finished 1 year with the Kansas City Royals. Now, technically, he only played for 2 teams because the Washington Senators became the Minnesota Twins in 1961. He hit 573 home runs, which at the time put him 5th on the all-time list. But to me, what I remember about Harmon Killebrew was he was not a big guy. He was under 6 feet tall. Like, I remember in the late 60s when I first started following baseball, Harmon Killebrew and Frank Howard tied, I think, for the home run record that year, or the home run crown with 44 homers, something like that. But Frank Howard was 6'7", just this massive man. And Harmon Killebrew was, he was well built, but he was not a tall guy. He was short, which just tells you where power comes from. It doesn't come from your height. It comes from your hips and how quick your swing is.
Yeah, and they said he had wrists that were just, so quick and so strong.
Right.
I'm pretty sure.
I would think just for a guy like me that like to drink beer, Killebrew is a nice name, man.
You love to kill that brew.
Tonight.
Yeah, for sure.
That should be the name of beer. Killebrew.
Yeah, it's just an awesome thing.
Reinstated by baseball commissioner Bowie Kuhn, George Steinbrenner III, the Yankees owner, is back in baseball after serving 15 months of a 2-year suspension resulting from his conviction for making illegal political contributions. The Yankees are going to go to the World Series this year, and the following 2 years they would win in 77 and 78. And the Bronx Zoo under George Steinbrenner is some of the most interesting times in baseball history, that's for sure.
Before the fame, there was the flame. Faces in the crowd.
Faces in the crowd. Donna Murphy. Mark.
Yeah, Donna Murphy, she's a senior at Newport, Kentucky High, averaging 35 points and 20 rebounds a game. She's a 5'10 forward. She had scored 59 points in one game that year and was the MVP of the tournament. And then she went on to play college basketball as well. She had played, I believe, at Morehead State, which I think made her, I think she's like inducted in the Morehead Hall of Fame, I believe. Just had a great, great career.
Jack Barnaby, Billy. Who's that?
He's a 66-year-old coach at Harvard, but it's more than that. He did lead Harvard to his 20th National Collegiate Squash Championship when the Crimson defeated Yale 6-3. The thing about Barnaby is he was appointed head coach of Harvard's men's tennis and squash squads in 1937. He held those posts until 1976, but he later coached the women's squash teams from 79 until 82. And so he coached basically the men's and women's squash and tennis. His overall coaching record in those three sports was 745, 257, and 3. Many league titles, many national championships, other tennis titles. He may be the greatest coach that Harvard's ever seen.
Yeah.
19's Ho, where the readers take the shot.
Billy, who's mad this week in the 19th hole?
Mrs. Robert Borum. You remember those days when women used to sign it, Mrs. Scott Johnston or Mrs. Mark Hoffman. They don't do that now. But in this 1977 or 76, Mrs. Robert Borum was angry. Here she goes. I've never been able to understand why, when George Foreman fought 5 boxers in Toronto, winning all 5, it was called a circus act. Or when he fought King Roman and knocked him out in the first round, it was said to be fighting someone below his class. Or when he got up after being knocked down twice by Ron Lyle and knocked him out, it was described as a slugfest. Why isn't Muhammad Ali said to be fighting below his class or putting on a clown act? Ali wants to give Jimmy Young a chance at the title. Who's Young? Young fought King Roman. Ali is making a joke of what a boxing match ought to be. Thank you, Mrs. Robert Borum from Oak Heart, Indianapolis.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Mr. Robert Borum needs to wheel in his wife and put her, put the wraps on her.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
We're just getting into deeper and deeper trouble.
That would not be a good idea. I got another one that different strokes for different folks from Tim Everston from Latham, New York writes, your March 1 issue was the best in a long time. It had something for everyone. But Norman Edick from Cedar, Michigan wrote a 6-page article on fish, another 9 pages on possums. Is this a once-a-year deviation, or is it what I'm to expect in future issues? So, I agree. 9 pages on possums might be a bit too much. 6 pages on fish, I could go 6, 7, but, all right, I get it.
6, 7.
Norman, yeah, Norman's not happy with that. Hey, March 15th, 1976, Bill Veeck on the cover, the ultimate baseball maverick, and now the owner of the White Sox for a second time. A big thanks to Nancy Faust for bringing Bill Veeck to life for us. What a perspective from the inside Comiskey Park. It felt like we were there, guys, when she started doing those tunes for us, didn't it?
It did. It was amazing. It was like being back in the day. Beautiful organ player. Wonderful woman.
Yep.
When I hear about an organ, I always think either a baseball game or a church,
Yeah.
And it is baseball stadiums to a lot of people are blessed places.
For sure. Sacred. Inside the issue, you had Bobby Orr's uncertain future in Boston, Willie Shoemaker getting close to 7,000 wins, Virginia crashing the ACC party, and Rosie Mittermeier proving her Olympic magic was no fluke. For Bill Mahoney and Mark Hoffman, I'm Scott Johnston. Thanks for turning back the clock with us each week with us here on Past Our Prime.
Scott, can I say one thing before you go?
Yes.
Are you by a window? Look in that tree out there. Look at the tits in that tree. Oh, sorry. No, we're past our prime. My bad.